What's up, guys? So today is going to be a little different. And now that we've had several guests on our show that we've really enjoyed getting to know, we wanted to take some time to just hyper focus on the things that we've been through, the trials and tribulations of us starting our businesses, and just kind of talk about, what it took to get us here, and then also a few of the bumps along the way that you can expect when you start a business. So Brent, man, when we started, it was 2020. It was the middle of COVID. Some people think that that's crazy, but I mean, in my opinion, like honestly, starting in 2020 was a blessing for us. It gave us the opportunity to market when other people weren't there. But going back to that, in 2020, what was it like for you when we first started our business?
Well, there was a lot of things going on in my head because I was kind of not walking away, but I was a realtor, and that was my primary focus for, I guess, 6 or 7 years before we started. So anytime you switch jobs, I think there's fear that comes up, whether you're going from job to job, especially if you're starting a business and now you're taking on that responsibility of rent, employees, all those things that come with it. So I think there was a lot of fear of the unknown, but also there was a lot of like good feelings, like a lot of joy. And because I think we all are built to want to kind of create our own destiny. I think most people out there, if they could choose, would work for themselves, wouldn't have to answer to someone. So that was kind of, it was a mixed emotions. But I think starting in COVID, like you said, I think it was a good thing. And at the time, when me and Rob originally started, COVID wasn't even a thing. And then by the time we had partnered with you, COVID was like, hey, you can't even have an office open right now for like a couple weeks, but we still did.
People are driving with masks in their car.
Yeah. So I think, looking back, I think COVID was a good thing. In the middle of it, there was a lot of unknowns, a lot of fear. But I think having you guys there, if I was doing it alone, man, it would have been so much harder to get through that.
And talking about that real estate, I mean, we didn't know it at the time, but honestly, like putting real estate not to the side, but like doing it less, it was like perfectly timed because the market got to where people needed like 40 offers on a house to sell it and all that good stuff. And we didn't really know that was going to happen when we started.
That's so true. And I thank God for insurance. I've told Hannah multiple times, like if all of our eggs were still in real estate, I'd probably be, working at Walmart. I don't know what I'd be doing, but the real estate market has gotten really weird here in Georgia. The interest rates, obviously, and I'm sure it's everywhere, but we went through a period of about a year and a half where every single house had multiple offers. You had to have the sweetest deal, had to waive your appraisal, had to do all these things. It was just crazy times.
Pay over appraisal.
Yeah, and then now it's like there's nothing on the market because nobody wants to sell because they got a good interest rate. People who can buy, really can't afford the interest rate. So it's just an interesting world. So thank God that we're diversified. So I would say to anybody that's starting, it is good to be diversified, but it's also good to focus in on one thing. So that's kind of a mixed message. But I think what we try to do, we claim to be entrepreneurs. That's what we love. I love different businesses. And I think a lot of times you do have to be careful in spreading yourself too thin. But at the same time, when you truly are an entrepreneur and you really want to dive into multiple businesses, you got to be an expert in all fields. So it's more
because it's going to be expected of you. And to give my 2 cents, I started in insurance specifically when I was 22 years old. And from the start, I was in insurance. It was about 6 months in when I realized that I wanted to open an insurance agency one day. So I want to iterate that if you find something that you're passionate about, it is very important that you put all your eggs in that basket and go try to succeed at it. Because once it's time, once you're the pro, once you're the business owner, you're going to be called upon to do a lot of different things that if you don't have that knowledge, like for example, if I would have started an insurance and then just bought an agency 1 month later, I would have had no freaking clue what I was doing. And not only that, I couldn't have mentored employees. I would have been alone. It would have been just way different. So taking and picking something, kind of like you had done with real estate before insurance, and making yourself the pro at it, the expert at it, is something that I could say, no matter what field you're in, it's going to benefit you in the long run. Gaining those skills is going to help you become the best version of yourself in that field. And then it's going to attract other people that want to be good at that as well. Because not everyone wants to be an insurance agent, but the people that do, I know if they come to me, I can help them with it. And now these guys can too. So the skills come.
And I think you got to, whatever you're trying to do, if you're not 100% bought into that and truly want to become an expert, you're probably going to fail. And that's just a sad reality. And I think Rob, I'd love for you to talk about it, because Rob's so interesting to me because he truly is like an expert when it comes to trucks. And he became an expert in insurance. And I mean, he's, the number one producer that we have. He sells more insurance, he probably sells more side by side insurance than anybody in the state of Georgia. It's so funny that our office, I think our office is like second in the state, and most of the policies are from Rob. So Rob's really like second in the state.
And Rob may be too humble to say it, but one thing that I noticed that Rob does is when he starts something, he goes 110% as fast as he can at it. And that's how he picks it up fast. That's how he becomes something quick.
And even with our house flipping now, like Rob has really taken the initiative, and man, he's crushing the house flip. He's running those jobs. So what is that, Rob? What do you have in you that makes you, truly try to be an expert?
I get fired up about what I'm doing, and like I like to do stuff that's interesting to me. And like when I was at the city, one of my first jobs there, I was in the stormwater division. So I handled like stormwater. We'd have to go to job sites. So I can remember, 18, I'm going to job sites, and all these contractors and developers are meeting their crews at their houses and checking, and they're pulling up in their brand new trucks and getting out. And I'm like, man, I want to do that. You know what I mean? And then fast forward to we open up this agency, and we always knew that we wanted to get into the house flip, and that was something we were passionate about. But when I first dove into this, like y'all said during COVID, it was honestly a blessing. And my favorite year so far that we've been open with the insurance agency was still that first year, because it was so much fun. But with it being fun, it was also challenging because nobody trusted what you were doing. You were the new guy in insurance. Nobody trusted you. So I wanted to go above and beyond to prove that we were the best in Paulding County and in the state, so you can trust us. So by doing so, we have to live it. We were posting every single day on Facebook, and, you walk the walk so you can talk the talk, and then people start trusting you. But that's kind of, when I started, I wanted to let everybody know I was the best, even if I wasn't necessarily the best at that point, because if you can convince people that you're the best, you'll become the best, because they'll start allowing you to, quote their insurance and buy their house. And then, it's just, with me, I just want to do what I say I do. And if people will trust you, you're always going to be successful. So I just want my name to mean something. So to me, that outweighs the money and everything else. Like, I want to be a guy that does what I say I'm going to do. Yeah. And by doing so, sometimes you just got to grind. If you don't, I'm the boots on the ground kind of guy. I'm the one that goes and figures it out and just gets it done.
And there's two things you just hit on. And that first thing was passion. Rob shows extreme passion no matter what it is that he's doing, which allows him to succeed. And the second thing that you mentioned with the representation of your family name is integrity. And for each of us, I mean, when we got our business started, we looked at each other and said, we're going to put God in the center of everything that we do. And with that, it's not always easy, but there is a specific amount of integrity that has to come with that. Like, I can't wake up and lie to all my business partners and go on the next week and everything be okay. That would be a terrible mistake. And if you're in a position where you're thinking of doing that, I would highly recommend you readjust and think of a different way to go about your business. And so the passion and integrity is something that Rob has shown from day one. And going into starting that year, one thing that we do, obviously we do real estate. We are doing house flips now, but our bread and butter at the beginning was insurance. And, insurance is something that people honestly don't like paying insurance sometimes. And I get it. I've seen people that have made $100,000 after they got in a car wreck and felt, very blessed and pleased that they had paid for their insurance. Then some people pay it their entire life and never get a dollar from it. But one thing that we set out to do was to make insurance something interesting and fun. We knew that if we marketed insurance correctly, and that's a big thing, marketing, no matter what you're doing, if you market yourself and make it exciting, entertaining, valuable, you will attract people that are wanting to shop their insurance or shop whatever product you're selling. They're going to want to do business with you they're more likely to do business with you.
They got to pay somebody. They might as well pay you. You want to be able to provide a good service, good customer service. But at the end of the day, most people don't care that much about the price. All they care about is, I want to use this guy because I know he'll be there for me, and they're cool, kind of. You know what I mean?
No, and some people can't get that through their head. Like, it's everything in our markets, everything in our world is not always about the price.
Mm-mm.
I mean, insurance, people think about it as heavily price-based, but outside of insurance, even products, think about when you go to, say, Target and you see 3 products you like, sometimes you pick the most expensive one because it's the one you like the most.
Yeah.
It's quality over the price.
Why do you see so many Louis Vuitton bags walking around? It's
Yeah.
because people like quality. They like
And the brand behind that, they've branded that extremely well.
Exactly. So I think that's such a good point for, our people that are, I know a lot of you that listen to this are business owners or striving to do that, or young and trying to figure it out. And I would say, whether you're working as an owner of a business or if you're working within an organization, that integrity piece and doing what you say you're going to do, you're going to progress way quicker no matter where you're at. I mean, man, people that come to work for us, if they do what they say they're going to do, they show up when they say they're going to show up, we're more apt to give them a raise and more apt to, promote them within our organization. So I don't want, a lot of our content is geared toward entrepreneurship, but I think there's a lot to be said about building a brand within a brand, because it's not, man, this life is not built for everybody, because it is not, we're not going to sit here and lie to you and say there's every day is a rainbow and butterfly situation. There's stressful days. There's hard decisions that have to be made constantly. And it's not for the faint of heart. So I think it's a big piece to take this no matter where you're at, whether you're working for somebody, whether you're trying to get to the point where you can build your own business. Like, start with that integrity piece, start with that passion piece where you're at, and prove that you can do it before you just jump out. Because, me and Rob had talked about opening up business for years, because our friendship goes so far back to when we were both working at the city of Dallas. I think I was making $10 an hour. You were probably making 13 at the time,
At that time, yeah. Started at 9.
Yeah. So we, for whatever reason, we both were geared toward, man, what kind of business can we open? And we threw out so many ideas that didn't work, that didn't come to fruition, because luckily, I don't think God allowed us to open those, because we probably would have failed. But we just had that built in us. But if we would have both been not integrable, not people that did what we said we're going to do, when we did start the business, nobody would have supported us. So it's so critical.
Well, it was already hard enough starting the business, gaining trust when you were a pretty trustworthy person.
Correct.
I couldn't imagine starting a business when you weren't the best
When
person.
you're a shyster.
Like, not that I'm the holy great of all, but you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly
I
what
lived
you
my life pretty good and always treated people pretty fair, and it was still very hard, harder than I thought at the beginning.
Correct.
But then it gets easier.
So I think that just goes to show you guys, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're trying to do, figure out that integrity piece and find something that you are passionate about, that you could make a career of. And maybe that leads to, I never in a million years thought that I would be an insurance agent.
Neither.
I'm sure you didn't. So you never know what God's going to throw in place for you to do. So just put your head down, go to work, and, find that integrity piece, find that passion, and just get after it.
And with the integrity too, like, you start noticing, like, hey, you change your behavior. Hey, I'm becoming a better person. I'm becoming a better man, woman, a better husband, wife, a better father, mother. And in that, you start to grow. And we expect, as humans, we expect results like this. We think, I changed last week. Why isn't this week the best week ever? You know what I mean? And so within that integrity, you also need to mix in a little patience. And even 3.5 years into our business, we're still having to execute patience on a daily basis, whether it be in our internal relationships with each other, with our spouses, with our business, with our employees, or with the overall perspective of where we're at. That patience is something, like, when you start becoming the person you want to be, the integral man or woman, give it some time, man. It's not going to happen overnight. Sometimes you become the right person. Think about if you've been the right person for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. That is when you can expect to see the seeds that you've planted grow. It takes time to water these things up and to get to where you want to be. So have some patience with yourself and some grace that you're not exactly where you want to be because you changed last year and you started a business. Not everyone that starts a business succeeds. And I don't know the stats, but everybody always says they fail in 5 years.
Yes.
So be patient with yourself. If you're starting or thinking about starting something, even when these guys were talking about starting a business, they had to be patient until the right thing came along. These guys met when they were 18 and started a business when they were 30. That's 12 years of waiting. You know what I mean? So have some patience. Even for myself, I started at 22 and I didn't get to open until I was 26. I knew what I wanted to do, but it took time and the right opportunity. And that's another thing, man. If I could express anything enough, when you have the right mind and you're thinking about what you want to do, these opportunities, they begin to like magnet towards you. It's like your body's a magnet and all the opportunities just start showing up. Nowadays, we have to say no more often than we say yes, because the opportunities are just always there. And once you get your mindset to where you can view these opportunities and really analyze them, you're never going to run out. So lack of opportunity is not the case. It's the lack of your mind. That your mind has to change to find the opportunity. So do you guys have anything you want to share on that?
Well, the patience thing, me and Rob talked about it yesterday. We were just kind of talking about our businesses and where they're at. And, you know, we're so blessed, but at the end of the day, it is still challenging, and we're still trying to get to that point where all of our guys are, you know, flourishing, we're flourishing. Like, we're trying to get to that point where we're, you know, truly financially free. And I think we're all in that, you know, mindset of trying to get to that point. And, you know, it's not the love of money, but, you know, money does provide a good life. So it's something that we need in this world. But
and when you're working hard, you want to get rewarded.
Exactly. So what, you know, we were talking about the other day is that I kind of knew going into this, because of the books that I've read, that it was going to be a grind. I knew that most businesses do fail. If it's not within the first year, it's within the first 5 years. And then most of them don't make it 10 years. Like, we've read books about it, how challenging it is. So I kind of knew what I was signing up for. And then we look at all, you know, locally to where we are, we look at some of the big businesses that we see, you know, Ragsdale Heating and Air, you know, you got Hardy Chevrolet, you got some of these other,
or the people we've interviewed.
Yeah, all the people we've interviewed. And it's like, man, it took them way longer than they probably expected. And, you know, look at Hardy. It was not built in a day.
No.
It was built, I mean, it's probably been around for 40 years, and you get to see what happened 40 years later is what we get to see. We don't get to see day one when it was just him and, you know, whatever that situation was. But we've had so many guys come on the show and tell us about it. So it's refreshing to know that we're not alone in that.
Yeah.
That the patience is something that we need, and it's something that you're going to need regardless of, you know, if you're started your own business, if you're working for someone right now, be patient. But also, like, what I like to tell our guys is you have to be patiently aggressive, which is kind of a weird word, but it goes back to what Rob just said. We're working so hard. Sometimes it's hard to be patient, but that's where you got to be. You got to be patiently aggressive. You can't say, well, it's going to be a couple years before I'm successful, so I'm just going to chill today. No, it's got to be, my success for the future depends on what I do today.
Action.
So I have to get after it today. I have to get it after it tomorrow. And then I have to just keep, you know, hitting that wood every single day. And eventually you're going to see that patience pay off.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool.
And another thing too is, like, you hear it a lot, but everyone always says get a mentor. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I've been blessed with several. As you network and as you grow your people around you, your circle, your environment, you know, one of my mentors is my father-in-law, which we did interview, so you should go watch that. But my father-in-law, he always tells me, man, I didn't have anything until I was 42 years old. Here you are at 30, and basically just be patient. And he doesn't tell me to shut up, but he says it in a nice way. You know, he says, like, when I was your age, I didn't have anything, and it took me to 42 to where I really started. And just hearing that from someone who's been through it, find you someone who's been through what you're trying to go through. Find you someone that is successful, that you want to emulate, someone that you want to become, and ask them how they did it. How did you get here? What did that look like? And that is some of the stuff that has helped me in my mind more than anything else. I've probably read 300 books in the past 5 years, and nothing beats talking to a human being that has actually done it, just like these guests that we've talked to.
Yeah, I think the mentorship is like one of the critical roles in, you know, where we are today, is that we have good people around us. And I mean, this show has really opened up that door for us to have some really good conversations with people, even off air.
Yeah.
You know,
oh yeah, there's a lot that goes on that unfortunately that ain't even on the show, you know.
Right.
And those good mentors allow you, like, as we get older, we can become those mentors, because I am very passionate. We're all three very passionate about giving back to the following generations. Like, there's a guy that's 22 in an insurance agency right now that wants to do it that I can help. because of the experience that we have. And so that's something that if you listen to your mentors, you can become the mentor yourself. If you hold on to the passion, if you hold on to the integrity, if you do the things patiently aggressive, if you do a culmination of all these things we're talking about, you can become the person that you want to be.
Yeah, and there may be people watching this show that want to reach out to us. Like, we'll be here for your mentors if you want to reach out. I mean, we're definitely not at that level to where we feel like we're like overly successful, but we do have some good info.
Anything we got, we'll give. And a lot of these guys out there are in that same mindset to where they want to help. They want to see you avoid the potholes. Going back to Pave the Way, why we started this show is to try to help other people avoid some of the stuff that we went through as they're getting ready for that journey. And I think, on the stem of the mentorship, something that came to my mind is setting proper goals for yourself. That was a huge part in my life. Grant Cardone I would call him a mentor in my life because of all the books I've read, all the video. I still consume his information. Probably 10 years now I've been consuming his stuff. And he was very heavy on setting goals and writing them down every morning and then writing them down before you go to bed. And it could be the same goals. You just write them down again and you write them down again. And I've got notebook after notebook of goals. And what's so cool to go back and reflect is when I go back and look at those goals, I'm living in those goals today from 6 years ago.
Yes.
Like they actually came into existence because I was focused on them. So I think, we share this with our guys a lot, but if you don't have any goals, you don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're striving for. So I think along that same vein of having a good mentor, you got to set goals for yourself and you got to write them down and you got to be aware of where you want to go in life, or you're just going to sit there going in circles all day long and not have a clear focus of where you want to go.
And goals help you to visualize. Visualization is something that has worked for me extremely well. And when I talk about visualization, I think about one very, I don't know where I got it, but it was a bold statement. It was basically picture yourself at your funeral. What are they saying? And when I visualize myself in a casket and I think about the people around me and what they're saying at my funeral, and I visualize that, it helps me to want to become the person that they're talking about. When I visualize these goals that he's talking about, I write down goals as well. Those goals are just constant visualizations that I have, whether it's amount of premium we've sold, whether it's amount of money I have, whether it's amount of family time I spend per week. I write all my goals down. That way I can visualize myself doing them. And once I visualize it, it gets easier to accomplish. If say your goal right now, like I've had my first child, he's less than 1 year old. And about 3 months ago, I wrote down, that I wanted to spend an average of 28 hours a week at home. I'm not telling you that I succeed at that every week, but if I had never written that down, how would I know what I wanted to do with my family? It's just that easy or that simple, but it's something that we look over. We just go about our busy life because there's 59 things going on every day and we just kind of skip over it. But that's something for me that has helped extremely in the goals or in the processes to get where we're at today. And then you had mentioned, I want to talk about, you said avoiding the potholes would pave the way. What do you guys, just name a couple, what would you say are some of the biggest trials and tribulations that we've been through since we started Business Owner, just to give them an insight?
I mean, I think especially the time frame that we started, hiring employees is just challenging. And I think with any industry, any field, I think that's across the board that nobody, when you own a business and your name's on it and you care about it way more than your employees are ever going to care about it. And sometimes that's hard to be aware of when you're starting because you think everybody is going to see that piece of trash and pick it up because they need to pick, but they don't think that way. And I didn't think that way when I worked for the city or when in all my other previous jobs. So I think finding employees who have the same mindset and are, trying to go toward the same goals as the team, it's all about building culture. So I think building that culture is something that's been challenging. I think we've done a great job. We're super blessed with the employees that we have. A lot of our employees have been here since the beginning, and I'm very thankful for that. But I think, if I go back and look, I would think that we would have like 20 employees that are just like sipping our Kool-Aid and about the brand.
And
if
selling,
I had to go back and
selling
reflect.
Tons of insurance.
Correct.
I mean,
so I think that's probably been.
And to tag on, to add on to that, it's, you can have in your head the best training platform, the best ever. You think you know how to train someone and know exactly what makes them work because it worked for you and this and that. And it is crazy how different each person is than what you believe. That not everyone is like you. And that's why you have to have grace with them. It's that's another part of patience. But literally, you are you, and there is no one else like you. And so when you have employees and you're training them and getting them to think a certain way, it's like the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah.
Literally, you can have a guy that looks like he is A+ talent, and he comes into your organization and he's not what he said, And so that is something that I agree that has been a trial, but it's also beautiful because as we get the experience and we grow from that, we know what to look for.
Absolutely.
We get better at finding the talent. We get better at, going through the talent.
Well, that's another good thing about having three of us doing this together versus one is, we might find a guy that relates to Brent. One might find one that relates to you. We might find one that relates to me because we're all three so much different.
Yeah.
We're all driven, but we're all so much different. So.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And I think what I would say is, we should, if we look back on how we could do better and avoid some potholes, if I'm giving you advice, is establish that culture and don't vary from it. You know what I mean? Like, just stick, like, this is how we do things. And that's the people that I look up to who have built amazing businesses, all the people that we follow and listen to on a daily basis, their culture is what it is. And if you don't come into that culture and accept it, man, you just got to go.
And even if you're partnering up with someone, like, there's two examples, but if you're partnering with someone and you've hung out with them 90 to 120 days and they're just not on, you can't expect them to just change and become the person you want them to be, or that's going to fit the culture that you're wanting to create. Same with an employee. If they're there for 3 months and things aren't changing and it's not going to be different, don't give them a year. It's time to cut ties.
Yeah.
And that is real advice that we can say from experience.
Yeah, we fell into that trap. I mean, there's been guys that we've hired that we were so confident that they were going to be good that we just gave them so much and so much and so much and so much to the point where next thing we know, it's been months and months and, it just didn't ever work out, you know?
Yeah, and part of that is our personalities. We're very aware that people can change, and, through the faith that we've built and everything, we're very aware that even though someone may be this guy this day, we've seen people transform from coming into our organization. We've had guys start off flicking all of our employees off, saying all these cuss words, and the next thing you know, they're leading a Bible study in 4 months, and we've watched the change. So I'm not saying people can't change. I'm just saying if they're with you and you express to them the culture you're trying to create, and it doesn't get shifted back to you, it doesn't get reciprocated, it's time to cut ties.
Yes, that culture is so important, man.
Well, the generation now, a lot's different too with hiring younger guys, because we look at how it was. I feel like when we were coming up that it was more hard work got you to where you wanted to be fast. So like, I like working hard. I like staying busy, but like a lot of the younger generation that's coming in now, like they are not entitled, but they almost expect just to be able to get it without having to necessarily work real hard for it at the beginning. Like,
and there's so many distractions.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Gosh, we had like a Nextel when we started working.
That's true. I mean, your buddy would like yell at you on the chirp, and then
Yeah.
that was about all you had to worry about.
That's
Just put it
right.
on silent.
Now there's so many distractions in this world.
Yeah.
I think too, when I'm thinking about potholes and stuff, I mean, this is just real life, guys. You gotta be on top of your financial situation with taxes, with all that stuff. Luckily, we've been very blessed. Alex has a really good knack for, the money side of things. And I'm so thankful because me and Rob would have just been balls to the wall.
Yeah, I mean,
and worried about the taxes
I was used to working for somebody that always took care of your taxes for you. And then, which again, we've done really good thanks to Alex and some other people, but we've also still made some mistakes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even being prepared, we've made
That's
more
something
mistakes.
that I would just say, like, really hone in on the financial side of things, because you'll get yourself in trouble if you're not careful with, taxes and all the back taxes. That's why a lot of businesses fail when you really get into it, is because of taxes.
Yeah.
Because they're not prepared. I mean, hiring employees now, after being 3 years into the business, this is what a lot of people don't think about that haven't ran a business. And a lot of the people that are out there saying we need to tax the business owners more and tax the wealthy more, I don't want to go down that road, but let me just say, a lot of people don't understand how expensive it is to even have an employee from a tax standpoint.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, I mean,
No.
the taxes are kind of my forte and stuff. And I want to say too that even though that's the case, I still depend on people that are in the tax world to give me advice and to guide me, because even though I may know it or think I understand it, these tax laws are ever changing, and there are ways that you can find yourself in a big hole. And yeah, you think that hiring an employee and you're paying them a let's say you're giving them a salary and everything and it's $3,000 a month. Well, in reality, man, they got to have, they're going to eat snacks at your office. They're going to use your power. They're going to use your stuff. And you're going to have this payroll tax that, dude, if you're paying $3,000 on a salary, your payroll tax is probably in the ballpark of $800 to $1,300. So that one person that you thought you were paying $3,000 just turned into $4,500, and we don't even offer health insurance. You know what I mean? Yet. But seriously, it's just one of those things that you don't think about that does come up. And I can't advise enough to, if you're not the guy, if you are starting a business and maybe taxes are something, you watched 100 YouTube videos and you don't understand it, call an accounting firm, become friend, go network with someone who understands this stuff and get them in your contact, in your phone, and get to where you can reach out to them. Even knowing just some tax people this year, that employee retention tax credit, ERTC, I don't know how many people watch this are business owners, but that tax credit alone allowed us to keep moving our business forward this year, and it put us in a very good spot. And if I didn't know people in taxes, that is something I could have not had, or something our business would not have received.
Well, it goes back to the mentor thing too. You find mentors that are good at taxes, and like me, it's kind of funny, I used to buy and sell a ton of guns. That was like my side hustle when I worked at the city. And I can remember when I met my buddy Ed for the first time, he came in the pawn shop and he pulled out 4 or 5 guns and they did some wheeling, dealing, trading, and he left. And I thought, man, I want to do that. I want to be able to make money selling a couple guns because that's fun. So I befriended him and he showed me the way that he bought and traded, and shoot, that ended up turning into one of my best friends. But now, I gained the knowledge through him. He calls it a cheap education, but I gained a cheap education through him on how to buy and sell guns. The next thing I know, I was really good at that, and I did a lot of it. Same with cars. I had guys that bought and sold cars, and I got in with them, and then now I'm the guy that's good at buying and selling cars. So
absolutely,
cheap education.
Mentor, yeah, cheap education. And I bought a bunch of guns that didn't have magazines, is why he calls it that. He had some guns for sale, and he wanted to know what I would give for them, and I made some low ball offer, just, goofing, and he took it. And I thought, oh man, that was awesome. And then I was like, well, where's the rest of the parts to them? He's like, well, they don't have any more parts to them. You should have examined your merchandise. You just got a cheap education. And he stuck to it, and I lost my money, but that was a cheap education.
You don't want to get a cheap education in the tax laws because it'll sink you.
Because it'll actually be an expensive education. That's the last thing I'll say about taxes is, talk to an accountant, talk to someone in the tax field. But another thing to watch is how profitable your business is. I know that sounds crazy, but it's different when you're breaking even each year versus when you show 50,000 in profit or 30,000 in profit or 100,000 in profit.
Yes.
And there are ways, I don't want to go down the politic role either, but basically as a business owner that does employ about 9 to 11 people, it hurts to have to pay these taxes after you've already spent a lot of money giving and providing jobs to people, and now you're sitting here having to pay more taxes at the end. I can't iterate enough how important it is to understand your tax situation, to understand the profitability of your business, find out what you can write off. We can do food, we can do cars, we can do this and that. Figure it out and make the most of it.
Correct.
Let's do a break.
Yeah. Real quick, guys, this is Rob with the Wheeling Agency. I just wanted to reach out to y'all. We've been in business a little over 3 years here in Paulding County. We take pride in serving our community, so next time you're in the need for some insurance, give us a call and reach out. Now get back to the show.
So what we do is we do insurance. We're real estate agents. We have now, I want to start over.
Yeah. They know who we are.
Yeah. Well, I want to say what we do though.
Okay.
Like as the overall picture. Unless y'all think that's a bad idea.
I would just say
we can just start with consistency. That's fine. So doing all this insurance, real estate, getting into the real estate investing, the one thing that we notice all the time, and we look at our competitors and notice how they sometimes do a great job at it or lack it, is consistency. Doing consistent action, consistently waking up every day with the goals that we mentioned in mind, and just consistently showing up over and over again, whether it's to get slapped in the, not literally slapped, but for a customer to say something negative to us, or to do the most fun part of the job, making a sale. We just keep showing up over and over again. And that consistency is something that has helped our careers a lot. Do you guys have anything to say about the consistency that you've shared?
I try to live by that. I might not be the best at something, but I'm going to be so consistent with it that people are going to think I'm the best. I kind of said that earlier, but
it's kind of like with your truck sales.
Yeah, people will joke all the time and they'll be like, man, I've never met somebody as lucky as you, man. You can buy this gun and sell it for double. You can buy this truck and sell it for double. And, maybe luck comes into play, but I feel like, I'm going back in the day when I was selling guns, I would go to 4 or 5 pawn shops a day and then do that for 3 or 4 weeks, well, then I would find a deal finally. And it was like with trucks, you know, I'm on Facebook Marketplace for 8 hours a day, and I'll drop what I'm doing to go buy something. You know, yeah, I'm having good luck when it comes to selling and making a profit, but realistically, the reason why I was able to make the profit was the amount of time, the consistency that I had to be on Marketplace, to find the deal, to go get it, drop what I was doing. You know, people just see the end. They don't see all the work that goes into the beginning. You know,
Absolutely.
finding the deal. You make your money when you buy, always, with houses, with anything else. You know, you got to buy it at the right price to make the money, but to be able to buy it at the right price, you got to be consistently looking for it. And that's just an example kind of there. It's like, you got to be willing to be consistent as crap if you want to be good at anything.
Well, preparation leads to luck.
Yeah.
That's what's so critical, is that you have to prepare for the opportunity. You have to spend your time on Facebook Marketplace. For us, it's, you know, every single day we're calling so many people trying to buy their house. We're calling so many people randomly, just asking if they want an insurance quote. So it's like, if you can, and if you do that for a week, you may not have any success, but do it for a couple months and then see what you're looking at. A lot of people fall off in that week when they don't have success. And that's kind of goes back to some of the potholes that we have. You know, some of our guys, we allow them to not be consistent, where we weren't, you know, really pushing them to be consistent, because we're, you know, we always kind of talk about, from a leadership standpoint, we didn't really need somebody holding our hand. We were just driven. And some people really need their hand held to get them to be consistent. So I think that kind of goes back to some of the potholes of, you know, us not having our employees be consistent, because that consistent effort is so needed in whatever you're going to try to do.
And how to get that consistent effort is a word we call accountability. Accountability, holding people accountable, saying, hey, did you do this? Hey, did you reach your goal? Hey, have you done X, Y, Z? Whatever, your business is going to be different than ours. But if it sells, it's more or less the same. Did you make the amount of calls? Did you have the amount of conversations? Did you do the appointments? Did you talk to anyone? And this consistency he talks of, you know, if it doesn't work in a week, it might even not work in a few months, but let's keep it up for a few years and see how much exponential growth you get from that. One thing that has always been important to me is networking. So I used to think about networking, and, you know, they say your network is your net worth and all that. Well, now I have a different mindset on it. And to me, you have you have ROIs, return on investment, of everything you do. You could go home and spend time with your wife and child, or your husband and child all day, and you're going to get a return on your investment. Your family's going to love you. They're going to see you as the leader. They're going to know you're taking care of them, X, Y, Z, all the above. There's also a return on investment when it comes to having a relationship with someone. There are things that other people can do for you that you don't even understand. There are people that you've met that have doorways into other people. They say that everybody on this earth is 6 people away from being connected. That means that there's a dude sitting in Ireland right now that I am 6 people away from being connected to. And so when you take this mindset on and know that your relationships have an infinite ROI, that they can produce things that you never dreamed. When I was 22 years old, I had zero idea that I would even meet Brent and Rob, much less own a couple businesses with them, you know, much less be surrounding my entire environment and life around their families and their lives. So what I'm saying is, just never take people for granted, and also keep in mind that even if you're having a bad day or something bad's happening, the return on investment of dealing with a person is infinite. You never know what can come from it. Even the guests we've had, the knowledge we've received, it's something that I could have never guessed, that when we said, hey man, let's start a show and get our story out there a little bit. Let's talk about getting some content going. I could have never perceived that we'd be sitting down with these multimillionaires teaching us how to do these things that we're writing goals down and dreaming of. So relationships and people are huge, along with this consistency.
It's so true. And I think something that I would want to add to that is, building your network is also something that takes consistency.
Yes, and it takes time.
A lot of times it's, for me, I know starting out, it's out of your comfort zone to go to these meetups, or go to this, you know, Power Core that you did for so long, or to go to Rotary that I do, or to go to whatever it might be that you're doing. A lot of times it is out of your comfort zone. And sometimes it's easier to just go home and play PlayStation or whatever it is that you do.
That's such a good point.
You know, so you have to consistently show up to those appointments, show up to those meetings that you may feel a little awkward walking into, and eventually you won't feel that way. Now, I love going to Rotary. I love meeting those people. At the end of your Power Core journey, you were leading it. You know what I'm saying? So your perspective shifts when you consistently show up. Even now for me, I can go into an environment where I know nobody. And if my wife's with me, she's so nervous because she doesn't do that very often. But for me, it's just like, man, I can have a conversation with just about anybody.
Same.
So
And
When I was at the city, you know, they would, and I'll remember this forever, I guess, but when we used to have these safety meetings and training classes, we would have to go meet with other government, you know, employees. And one thing they always did was they make you stand up at the beginning and say like who you are and where you work. And I remember like I would be like nervous wreck, like, bro, I don't want to stand up and tell them I'm Rob from Dallas. Like, you know, who cares?
yeah,
But like now I get it. It's like they were just trying to get you to build a network with those other people because this guy across the table might be from Rockmart and you're in downtown Atlanta. And if he knows you're from Rockmart or you're from Dallas, then y'all can build this relationship and network to where when one day this government needs help from this local government, you have connections.
And going back to consistency, once you did that a couple times, how much easier does it get?
As easy as could be.
It gets easier and easier. There used to be a day where, you know, nowadays, like I would even recommend if you go to the grocery store and see someone dressed sharply that, you know, looks like something you'd be interested in, just go say like, hey man, we're looking at green beans here. What do you do? It's like that easy. And I know when I was 22 years old, I couldn't even fathom doing that. But I'll tell you a quick story. When I was, I think I was 24, a guy I had worked at a restaurant with in college, he texted me and he asked me about reading a book or something that I had read. It was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And, you know, he ends up texting me about this book and I end up going to have breakfast with him like 2 days later. And I meet a guy there. His name's Brian. Shout out Brian Bass. But this dude, I literally met this dude because a guy texted me about a book. And then the next thing I know, I'm having breakfast with him. And that man, Brian Bass, is what persuaded me into getting saved by Jesus Christ. All that just from a text. What I'm saying is that consistency in talking to people is so overlooked. But if you are consistent with it, with building your network, you never know who's going to enter your circle. And you never know where it's going to take your life.
Well, just like you could tell them the story about when you met, you know, Brad Parkhurst and like how that whole, I mean, our whole business has changed because of that whole interaction.
whole life has changed.
Honestly, like we go to Vertical Life Church here in Dallas. Also, if you guys ever want to attend a church, man, come join us. We'd love to have you and hang out with you and just hear your story. But one day we were in Costco and I don't remember who all was there.
And Colby.
Yeah, you and
Matt,
Colby and Matt
was there.
Okay.
But anyways, my brother worked for us. We're in Costco, and Colby, he wasn't my brother wasn't in a position where he wanted to go up and talk to the guy in the suit at the store. He despised it. It was like a fear of his. And I told him, I said, hey man, we've skipped work for an hour to be here. You're going to talk to at least one person while we're here. And that's another thing, accountability. So anyways, we're about to exit. We have ice cream in our hand and hot dogs. And I'm like, oh, holy crap. I forgot that you didn't talk to anybody while we're here. So I go up to a guy and I poke him on the shoulder and I say, hey man, I'm going to walk you over here. And I want you to say hey to my brother because he's shy and doesn't want to talk to people. And that guy ends up being not only a pastor that ends up baptizing me, but he ends up having his son come up and ask about working with us. And so now his son works with us, and his son brought 2 more people to work for us. And all I did that day was with hot dog in hand, went up and said, hey, come talk to my brother, and gave him an insurance card. He let me quote his insurance, and then me and Rob met him for breakfast the next week. And that has changed our entire life. Now, Brent and I are leading things at church and doing groups there and all this good stuff, all because I hit a dude on the shoulder and said, come over here and talk to my brother.
Yeah. It's crazy.
You never know what's going to happen when you talk to someone.
I love that story.
Alex doing that has radically changed my life. You know, my wife serves at the church. I serve at the church. I just got back from a mission, my first ever mission trip. I went with this church, and it's all because Alex walked up to a random dude in Costco.
Yeah.
That just goes to show.
I mentioned the child I have. Like, my child is now going to grow up in this church, and I hope he hears this dude I met at Costco preach one day. You know, he already hears him, but homeboy's 7 months old. He just goes, the whole church until we take him out. But seriously, all I did was hit a guy on the shoulder and say, please come talk to my brother. And he radically changed, honestly, all 3 of our lives.
Yeah,
we all do church league softball. It's crazy.
Brad is a great guy, man. We got to have him on here one day.
We will.
Absolutely. So I think one thing I'll say with this is that you have to get comfortable with getting uncomfortable. You have to be able to step outside of your comfort zone time and time again. And what happens to your comfort zone is it gets bigger and bigger, and you have to keep stepping out of it.
Yes.
That's kind of what this show is for us. This was another level in us stepping outside of our comfort zone. Now that we're, 20 something episodes in, it's not as, tough.
When we first started filming the Wheeling Agency videos, They didn't see all the behind the scenes takes that it took to get.
You have to get comfortable
All the
decent.
scrambled
getting
cheese.
out of that comfort zone time and time again. And something that's cool, he just brought up Colby. Colby was scared to death to talk to anybody. The day that he came to interview with us to work, he couldn't even look me in the eyes. And he left our organization and went somewhere else. And we're always happy when people go if they're bettering themselves. So it wasn't like a bad breakup. But he told Alex the other day that he stood up in front of how many people?
30-something people at work.
And spoke. And it's like, man, that is what pumps me up.
Yeah,
Like,
and not to
so
take
cool.
the credit for him, because he had to step out of his comfort zone. He had to make the choices. And let me tell you, the man or the woman that you want to become is hanging out outside of your comfort zone. It's sitting there 10 years down the road of consistent getting out of your comfort zone. And this young man that came into us, couldn't even look Brent in the eyes, is now in a position where he could get a salary paid position at $70,000 a year, and he's 22 years old. All because that he started taking the shots, taking the chances, and stepping out into seeing what this world has to offer. And you can do the same thing, whether it's with your family, with your business, with your own self. You can do the same thing.
Even if you're not trying to start a business, networking is key. I mean, there's going to be a time in your life where that network, I mean, Brad is a prime example. Like, that didn't financially help us at all meeting Brad, but it changed y'all's lives. So networking can be for more than just business owners or somebody wanting to start a business. Like, you should network regardless.
Correct. Yeah, because there is the time where, like, me and Brent networked. You know, I went to 2 events at Brent's house and then a wedding before we were ever even friends or business partners, and that led into this relationship. But what if I had went to his house and just sat in a corner and said nothing the entire day? He wouldn't even know who I am. You know, we wouldn't know each other. We wouldn't have connected. We wouldn't know what our common interests were and are. So the networking is something that we could not iterate enough. And I know we've talked about so much, but networking is something that is never going to fail you, because like I mentioned, these relationships, they have infinite return on investment.
If you work hard and build a network and you're consistent, there's about a guaranteed fact that you'll be good at what you're doing.
Yeah, and keep this in mind. We're sitting here talking about this, and you'll be thinking about it, you'll be talking about it. Think about how many people around you aren't thinking about this, aren't talking about this. And when you become that guy in your circle, you'll start to see the circle shift. You know, they'll start looking to you for advice. They'll start looking at you like you're a different human being, because you are changing, you are growing and developing. And these things will lead to, like you said, success. You know, your own idea of success. Ours is written one way, so we're after a certain desire, but yours may be written, you might want to write a book. You may be sitting there wanting to write a book. You need to go talk to some authors. You need to go you need to go read some books. You need to figure out how to write, stuff like that. And if you start talking to people that are writing books, you will end up being the person in your circle doing that. That's an easy example.
So true.
So,
the last 2 things I got to maybe end it, I guess, I'll get their thoughts. But for me, and it's still to this day, I'm trying to tap into next level work ethic. So anything that you're going to accomplish in life, anything that you set out to do, just be ready to have a crazy work ethic. It's
Work hard.
needed. You have to work hard. And we've tiptoed around it all through this podcast, but your work ethic is so critical to your success. And it falls into everything we've talked about: consistency, showing up, doing these things, networking. But the overall thing that I'm thinking about here is your work ethic, and then acquiring wisdom. And how do you acquire wisdom? You can do it gradually over time, just with life experiences, but you can expedite it with books,
Podcasts.
podcasts.
Mentors.
The Bible is the ultimate source of wisdom. We read the Bible every single day. We challenge our guys to read the Bible every single day. It's the ultimate book that gives us wisdom. So you have to have a great work ethic, and you have to develop wisdom. And man, I think if you can do those 2 things, whatever you're trying to do, you know, put some salt and pepper with these things that we just talked about, man, you're going to be successful. So just really dive into, just love working hard and switch your focus. And that goes not only for your business, but for your family. What Alex is talking about with his wife and stuff, that's work. Like, he has to work to put them as a priority into his life, because I know him. It's easy for him to work till 7 o'clock at night, and he loves that, but he has to force himself to go home at 5. And that's a part of that work ethic.
Yeah.
Every area of your life is going to require you have a work ethic if you want to be successful.
When you have a kid too, it's like you want to work harder to provide more, but the harder you work, the less you're there, basically. So it's kind of a weird balance, you know?
Yeah.
And I can tell a quick little story, but when Harper was little, my daughter, you know, she's 9 now in 4th grade. Today's the first day of school, but, you know, my wife wanted to go to Disney World, and I was working at the city, and man, it was like the thought of having to finance a Disney World trip was like impossible. And at the time, you know, I wanted to start a business, but I didn't know what to do. So I decided to start a mobile detailing business. So I got a name, I got all the equipment that I needed, struck a deal with a buddy of mine that was going to help me get the equipment, give him a little bit of his money. But basically, I worked that, built a network in that, and detailed cars for a whole summer and didn't keep any of the money. And we used that money to turn around and go to Disney World. And it was really cool being able to provide that. But what I was getting at with telling that story is like, now I look back though on that summer that I missed so much time because I was so bit focused on that goal of raising that money to go. So like it's hard to balance, but you need to balance your priorities on that and not necessarily just be so tied up with money that you're willing to do whatever you got to do to make the money work.
Yeah.
You know?
True.
And then the last thing on the work ethic, my question to you is, if you're going to start something and you're going to do it and you're going to put your name behind it and your energy towards it, why would you not give 100%?
Exactly.
Why would you give 50% when the people around you, your family, even if it's just you, even if you're a single male or single female sitting at 20 years old, why would you not give 100%? And the last thing I'll say is, Brent had mentioned that we do read the Bible quite often. And some people think that we're just crazy religious people. But let me tell you, the other day I was reading in 2 Corinthians, and it said something about being a cheerful giver. Okay? Why do I need to know that? Maybe it didn't represent something I needed to know today, but when I read that Bible and I hear these things, and it isn't every day that I read the same thing, but I read a different thing every day, it helps keep my mind locked in and keep the wisdom I need to succeed in life, to have a good attitude, to make things happen. It keeps them at the forefront of my mind. That is why we do it every single day. And I couldn't encourage someone to do that enough. So thank you guys for listening, and we appreciate you.
That's a wrap.